What's up, y'all? Know that I'm a little bit late, or a lot late, but that's because I was almost gonna just wait until I get home. I was gonna do this during my walk, but it's so hot outside. It's so hot outside. It's way hotter than I expected. We have this wild heat wave in New York. But anyways, for anybody who watches 60 Days In, so I just turned it on. 60 Days In for me was one of those things where I guess the show has been on for a while, but I didn't see it because I don't watch a lot of TV, especially not a lot of live TV. Before I even had this channel, or before I even started doing this YouTube, aside from sports, I was watching next to nothing on TV. So I started kind of getting into these reality TV type of shows so that I have something to talk about on the page. So I started watching 60 Days In on season 5 because they showed it. You know, like when you have your TV show app, like a Netflix or a Hulu or whatever, and they acquire the rights, the broadcasting rights to a particular show, then to try to make their money back, they put the show in the featured section to push people to watch it, to get the clicks and to get the money from that. So that's where I saw it. It was like 60 Days In. I read the little blurb about the concept. So I was like, okay, these people from various backgrounds are going into these prisons and they're spending 60 days, or the goal is to spend 60 days within the prison system. It's almost like Undercover Boss in a way. For people who haven't seen 60 Days In, it's almost like a dangerous version of Undercover Boss, because imagine going into a prison with like fake charges, and then you go in there and anything could happen to you in there. You could get in a fight, you could get shanked. You know, they say that their goal is to protect you as much as possible, but it's something where y'all are in there by yourselves. So it's quite possible for something to happen to you and they don't get to you until it's too late. I don't know what's happened in all the other seasons because from my understanding, there's a lot of seasons. But I saw all of season 5. I binged season 5 and it was awesome. And there was something that I had to say about the show. It reminded me of a lot of things in my background, actually. It reminded me of some of my experiences. No, I haven't experienced prison. I have not actually been to prison. But I experienced prison-like things. For an example, when I was in high school, I've talked about this boarding school that I went to in high school. And it was actually a Christian school, so nobody would think that anything would be happening in this Christian school. This is just, some small private school where everybody in there is goody-goodies. That's what it was like if you were a community student, meaning if you lived out in the community. But if you lived in the dorm, it was a whole different thing. So we had the guys' dorm and the girls' dorm separated. And it was very strict. We had very strict rules. We had rules about the times we could go out, the times we could go in. We were in school, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we were locked down and people were getting shanked, but I still remember, so the school that I went to, there was a elementary school and then there was a high school. The two schools were connected. The two schools were down the street from each other. So a lot of people who graduated from the elementary school ended up going over to the high school. Hold on, I'm gonna try to read these comments, but it looks like they started way before I got on here. Not reading that one. Cam, why didn't you tell us? Okay, skipping these Cam ones. Let's see, the 16th, 7/16/83. Oh, so 7/16/83. Big Brother starts on 7/17. Okay. Sorry for anyone who's like, why are you stopping in the middle? It's because I'm trying to read through these comments before I finish the rest. All right. Hi, Melanie. Hi, Cass. Hi, Brenda. Hi, Ma. And yeah. So, anyways, now to get back to what I was saying. So, I was in this boarding school, and it was a Christian school. But the people who were sent into the dorm were people who had backgrounds of doing things in their hometowns. People that were expelled from their schools, people who had been to juvie, drug dealers, gang members, all of that stuff existed in my dorm. And when I walked in there, I learned about the politics of the dorm. There were politics in my dorm. And I've talked to high school friends that were in that dorm, and they were like, our dorm was literally like a prison system. Like, if somebody stole from somebody else's room, they would learn the time when the dean is not there and lock that person in a room, beat that person up. If you tell the dean, there's going to be severe consequences for you. Fortunately, I mean, there were a few fights that I did get into, but it was more like welcome to the dorm type of fights. So it was like messing with you type of thing, not like I'm trying to seriously hurt or injure you. I never got into that type of thing. And it was for a couple of reasons. It's because I had family that had been at that school before. So they had a respect for me for that. I was close to the dean, which you could compare to a DO on the show 60 Days In. You could compare the dean to the DO. Because the dean was somebody who knew a lot of different things that were going on. And he would lean on his RAs, residential assistants, which were the students in the dorm that are appointed to kind of run things within the dorm in the schools in the dean's absence. And as you might expect, or maybe you might not think about this, but you could cut deals with those people to do things that you weren't allowed to do. For instance, like we had a time that we had to be signed in, and then the RAs would have to check us in to say that we were inside the dorm, and they would lock down the dorm for the night. So you could have a deal with one of the RAs, and you could not come home for the night. You could be elsewhere, and the RA would vouch for you in exchange for whatever it is that you're exchanging, whether that could be lien, whether it could be money, or whether it could be like we were not allowed to have TVs in there, whether you had like a TV in your room. I had a TV in my room, which was not caught for a long time, and that was because the RAs assisted me. Another thing that reminds me of the show, the segregation. So I mentioned I grew up in a rural area in Canada. The demographics were like 92% white. There was like 1 to 2% black people in my elementary school. So most of my friends were white in elementary school, with like a couple of mixtures of others, like a couple of Asians, a couple of Spanish people, a few black people, but most of them were white. So that's what I was used to being around all the way up until I was about 13, and I went in that dorm at 13. But before then, mostly white friends. So then I go to this school, and I go to this dorm, and almost everybody in the dorm was black. The school itself was probably still overall, the majority of the students in the school were white, but almost the whole dorm, the girls' dorm and the boys' dorm, were mostly like black or Hispanic or Asian. So it was like, that was the most diversity that I had ever experienced. And I remember this one time in my high school cafeteria, since it was a school where all the people from the elementary school that graduated there, a lot of them went to the high school because it was right down the road. So I remember sitting with all my friends that I had from elementary school this first day. And it was like all of my white friends and me sitting at that table. And I remember everybody from the dorm that were the minorities pretty much were sitting at some other table looking at me. And I felt awkward for the first time because to me this was normal. These were just my friends. I wasn't seeing, oh, black friends, white friends. It was just like, these are the people around me. Either I like you or I don't, but it's not based on your race. And then I remember getting some kind of talk afterwards when we went back to the dorm. Oh, I'm not going to use the language that they were using, but I'm just going to say that they were basically telling me, don't hang out with the white people. That's not cool. And I remember being on the basketball court sometimes, or we would be playing sports, and then the black people I saw reverse racism probably more than I saw, standard racism. I don't know what to call it. I saw that more often than I saw the other, because the dorm students were kind of a gang in a sense. Seriously, like I could, one of these days, I'll have to have my friend on here who we have talked about several of these experiences together, and it was like a gang in there for real. I saw a lot of things happen. I saw people got beaten with studded belts, brass knuckles, and golf clubs. The way how I maintained myself, aside from what I was saying of the connections of people knowing my family, but aside from that, there was a few things. It was like I had a video game system in my room. What was it? I had a video game system in my room. I had a TV in my room that I snuck into there with the help of the RAs. I had a mini fridge where I would sell things from the fridge, which was just basically, sodas and snacks and stuff that were not available after hours. And certain people would be like, in exchange for me not beating you up, I will come in this room and take whatever I want out of your fridge for free and play your video games and watch your TV anytime I want. So they would just knock on the door. Hey, give me a Sprite. Give me a Coke. And I'm like, all right, I felt a way about that, but I also felt a way about maintaining my safety as of what I had seen happen to other people. And I'm sitting here at the time like 5'1", 120 pounds. Like, I could hold my own because, like I said, I was in a few fights and they were surprised that I held my own. But it's not like I'm going to be some big terror in there that people are going to be worried about. It did change my friendships. It put me in some strange, awkward positions. So if you don't know the show, or if you haven't seen the show, you won't quite understand what I'm talking about. But on the season that I watched, there was this guy, Mark. Yes, his name was Mark, with a K though. And I think that he was ex-military or something. And it was this white guy. And he went in there and he was like, what's killing me the most in this place is that when you walk into this prison, you have to declare which race that you're with. So it's just like, okay, you're with the whites, you're with the Hispanics, you're with the kin folks, which is the blacks. I think that's the only I think that was the only 3 groups I remember seeing in there. So it was like that. So even if he wanted to talk to others in there, it was just like there's everyone sticks with their own race. So it was very hard for me with those friends that I had, because I had long-standing friendships with them. Some of them I had known since I was like 4 years old, up until 13. But the thing is, I didn't live with them. So for them, it was just like they come and they see me on campus and they go to class with me, and then they go home. But if I'm hanging around with them all day and all my dorm people are seeing this, then when I come back to the dorm, I'll have some consequences. So I remember at first, I tried really hard what I tried to do was to try to hang around with each group separately. So I'm like, the cafeteria is this like big public area where everyone will see who I'm hanging with and who I'm sitting with. So I would make sure to sit with my black people when I was in the cafeteria, because I'm like, it's important for me to be seen with them so that they do not target me later. Because I don't know if it's because of their parents. It must have been, because where do you learn that kind of stuff at those ages? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you know? But they were on some F the white man stuff at that age. And if you're with them, then you're police, or you're against us. So do you still have any of those OG? One of them is the guy that I told you about in the saxophone story that I told about getting 3rd chair. He was the guy who got 1st chair. So I have a friendship with him. I think one or two other people that we still communicate occasionally through social media. But in the same token, that's not to say I have all those other people as friends, and I just don't have the original crew as friends. I mostly don't have friendships with any of those people from that time period. I have like two that I have kind of maintained with, one white and one black, and I have some that I have reconnected with here and there, like met them up here and there, or spoke to them on social media here and there. But generally that whole time period, I don't have many friendships that I have from that time period. Yeah, it had to be parents. I think it had to be parents or whoever was raising them that gave them that kind of hate at that early time. So yeah, that's what was happening in the jail. That was my first experience. That's what was happening on the show 60 Days In, where they had to go into the jail and then declare which race they were with. And then there was all kind of race politics. Everybody stuck to their own racial group. And if anybody stepped out of line, each racial group, they had like a leader. They had like a leader of the group, and then they had an enforcer. So the leader was the one that controlled all the decision making, and then the enforcer was the one who enforced all the decision making. So they had their own like prison ecosystem. And I've heard of this before, but I've heard people talk about it before, but seeing it was like, wow, they have a whole political infrastructure in there. They have ways that they deal with people who steal. They have ways that they deal with people who lie, snitches, people who use other people's commissary. It's crazy in there. It's crazy in there. So my second experience that reminded me of that to an extent, because again, I'm not saying my experience is that exact experience, but to an extent, I was thinking about my time in the psych ward. Probably not everyone from this channel knows, because I don't really talk about the personal topics as much on here on Mindful Reality channel, but I've spoken about it at length on my music and mental health page of spending time in a psych ward in 2013. So before I get into that, just a little bit more about season 5. Hi, George. A little bit more about season 5 of 60 Days In. So there was this guy, David, who was a police officer. And David basically blew the cover of the whole operation, and they had to pull everyone out because he put everyone in danger. So what happened with him was he got in there and he learned a lot about the infrastructure of the prison. He learned about the pod. He learned who the leader of the blacks was, and he became the second in command. He was really bold in there. Like when things happened, he would be yelling out like, "This ain't right, this ain't right, and one of y'all is gonna have to fight me if this happens again. We don't want to go on lockdown." He was talking to them about showering. He was just in there doing a lot. But I was like, wow, he's actually doing extremely well with infiltrating this system, and people seem to just really trust and like him. Then he got to a point where he's like, you know what? I already figured out how the drugs are coming in and out. You know, I am now second in command with the kinfolk. So I've basically done all that there is to do in here. So he decides to go and talk to a DO. Detention, I think it's a detention officer. He decides to go talk to one of them and reveal to that DO who he is, what he does for a living, and to say he's part of the show. And the DOs, basically most of them don't know, because the DOs knowing about the show would compromise what happens in the show, because like I said, it's almost like Undercover Boss. So the DOs we're just supposed to be observing what they would normally do with any new inmates that come into the pod. And if they know about why they're there, what's happening with them, then it's just going to compromise them getting that inside look, unfiltered, of what happens within the pod. So in addition to doing that, he invited this white guy that said, you know what, I like the blacks better, so I want to sit with the blacks. And he was like, screw the politics, come sit with us, come hang out in our room. And even me, from just watching those probably like 8-9 episodes to that point, knew that that was a recipe for disaster, especially on the men's side. It was crazy. On the women's side, there was only one fight that season. I don't know how it normally is, but there was only one physical fight. But in the men's side, they handle everything with fighting. Let's go upstairs. Let's go upstairs and just swing it out. But yeah, so anyways, he compromised the show because, and then also the other thing that he did was, there's this guy AB who was coming from like doing 14 years of time in various different places, and he came in there and he was doing a good job. He infiltrated the whole system in there, and he was one of the leaders of the chulos, I think is what they called them, the chulos. He was one of the leaders for them. And then so then David ended up telling somebody that was his enemy that came over to his pod, like, oh yeah, AB, oh, that's my boy, he in here? Oh yeah, we know each other from New York. And I'm like, what is this fool doing? What is this fool doing? So the whole thing basically got shut down because of him. Anyways, into the psych ward experience and what happened to me in the psych ward. I remember going into the psych ward thinking that it was like, you know how you see those celebrities that go to those nice resorts and they get these rehabs, and it's just like they get a nice bed, they get a nice TV, and they just get people who check on them and coach them and get them back to, being mentally well. So that's what I thought a psych ward was like at that particular point in time. This is all connecting, believe it or not, because the reason I'm saying all of this is because of AB. AB, the guy who I said was somebody who had been to multiple different prisons and then got in there and then kind of lost himself in there. He smacked somebody up. He ordered a couple hits for a couple people to get beat up, and he was just a tough enforcer that just really fell right back into that life that he was already used to when he got in there, and he even described it as traumatizing. So yeah, I remember getting into that psych ward. It was the same thing. I mean, they didn't watch me take off my clothes, but they're like, you gotta get in this room, take off your clothes, and put on this gown. So now I'm walking around with nothing but my hospital gown, and then I'm going into the psych ward. And I still remember the first day. In the psych ward. I thought that I was able to just get out anytime I wanted. And then they were like, no, we don't let you out until we determine whether you are a danger to yourself or others. And I'm like, what did I sign up for here? So I remember being in there, and then I remember the first 5 to 10 minutes that I was in there, someone came, introduced himself to me. What are you in here for? Just like what you see in that show. What are you in here for? Let me see your papers. Oh, okay. And you're kind of talking and you're kind of relating this to people. And then I remember this one person was like, keep my effing name out your effing mouth. This lady. And I was like, what? I just got in here. I don't know your name. Your name was never in my mouth. I don't even know who you are. I just met you. So then I remember one of the staff came over, was like, oh, Jackie, what are you so mad about? What happened? And she said, this mother effer with his effing beard. She was like, he was talking about me, and I don't like that. Tell him to apologize. And then she told me, apologize. I was like, for what? I'm not apologizing. For what? And then she was just like, I'm sorry on his behalf. I'm sorry that he was talking about you, blah, blah, blah. So then I remember that staff member pulling me aside later and saying, hey, I know that you didn't say that, or you didn't talk about that person, or you didn't say her name, but the reason why I had to actually tell her that you're sorry is because she has schizophrenia with delusions. So she thought you were talking about her, and if we didn't do that, then she would probably freak out, and then we'd have to give her the shot. Anyone who's actually been to a psych ward, which I know is probably maybe a small percentage of the population, but they have these shots. I think the shots are mixed with like Ativan, maybe like Xanax, Seroquel. These are all medicines that tranquilize you. So when somebody is acting really rowdy, like how in a jail they come in there and they'll throw the smoke bomb, or they'll do the pepper spray or whatever. That's their version of that. They'll hold you down and they will give you this knockout juice. Everyone in the hospital calls it booty juice. And because that's where they will stick that needle, and then it will knock you out. Then they put you in this room Sometimes they cuff you in the room. Sometimes they handcuff you in the room. But they'll put you in the room, lay you down. You're out for a few hours. And then you get back up and you're all groggy and stuff. And that's like your punishment for getting out of line. So when she told me that, it might sound bad, but I was like, I don't care if she has schizophrenia. Like, I'm in the hospital as a freaking patient. So why would I care about trying to stop another patient that is attacking me from getting too rowdy? Like, that's y'all job. I'm in here for y'all to help me. So frankly, like, that was probably the least empathy I ever had. That was probably the least empathy I ever had anywhere. I'm like, I'm not trying to help y'all do your job, because they were like, oh, you're high functioning and intelligent, so you have to help us for the people who have like learning disabilities and psychotic breaks. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. You are not holding me to, hey, Scotland. Hi, Fraser Brown from Scotland. That's new. Yeah, so anyways, it is hot outside. At this point, I'm just committing to finishing this story so that I can try to get to 10,000 steps. And I'm at 5,000 so far, and it takes me about 20 to 30 minutes to get the next 5,000. So I might be able to finish this whole story in its entirety at this point, right? So yeah, so that was what happened on my first day. So then there were people that are in there, because what people don't know about psych wards is that a lot of people will get put in the psych ward instead of a prison sentence. So somebody will do something, stab somebody or fight somebody or beat somebody up, assault, theft, whatever it is. Then their lawyer will encourage them to go see a psychiatrist and even get medicated in order to avoid going to prison, because they feel like, you know what, the psych ward is safer and better than prison. Because as far as I know, I mean, I do know some things get snuck in there a little bit here and there, but it's not like I was sleeping with one eye open in the psych ward thinking that I was gonna get shanked or something. And the staff was actually in there with us. We were not being watched in a pod. The staff was actually present at all times, even at nighttime. And then the people that were in there on those type of sentences that actually committed a crime, but then they were able to like plead on the mental health side of it, they had what is called a 1-to-1. My roommate in there was a blood. My roommate in the psych ward was a blood. I'm laughing about this because watching that show just opened my mind back up to all these past experiences that I have. And I was like, man, I've really experienced a lot of things in life, and fortunately have come out of most of those things unscathed. But I've experienced a lot more than people know in my life. But yeah, my roommate was a blood. My roommate had a 1-to-1. So that means that we had somebody, when I was in the room and he was in the room, we would have somebody who would sit in a chair, and he would sit in a staff member would sit in the chair while we were sleeping and just watch us all night. The beds were just like what you saw in 60 Days In. The beds were like these hard beds. And everything that they put in a psych ward is for the purpose of avoiding you being able to use it as a weapon against yourself or others. Like certain people, they wouldn't even give them a plastic knife when it was time to eat because of what their history and background was. And my roommate was one of them. So I remember being kind of terrified of him on low key, because this guy was a scary guy. And the way how he ended up not being my roommate anymore was because he said that he was a blood. Hi, Holly. All these people that haven't been here popping up today. Good to see you. He said that he was a blood and a Muslim. So he would do his gang signs and he would threaten people and stuff. And then he would also do his prayers. Don't ask me how or why, how that worked, but that's what was happening. So one day he decided to do his prayers in the middle of the, like in the common area, in the middle of the common area. And then one of the staff came over and was like, hey, you're allowed to do your prayers and everything, but you can't do them in this common area. Because everyone has different religions and religious beliefs, so you have to respect everybody. And he was like, Salam alaikum. He said whatever he said. It's like, thanks time, I guess. So anyways, he said whatever he said. So it's just like how it is in the prison. Like I said, it's the people get clicked up. And the funny thing is, all the people that were in there for like suicide attempts or mental health reasons or mental health breaks, those kind of people would be friends. And then the people that were in there because they beat people up or stabbed somebody or hurt somebody, stole something, you know, those kind of people that did criminal activities and were doing time in the psych ward to avoid time in jail, they clicked up. So I still remember that day where he did his prayers and then they told him he has to move and he was like, no, I don't. You can't tell me that I have to move to do my prayers. I'm going to do them right here. And all his other friends that were also criminals now jumped out in there into his defense. You can't tell my friend that he can't do his prayers, and they weren't even Muslim. Like what you see in those prisons where sometimes people are like looking to riot, it's like they're treated a certain way by the DO. Or just living in the pod is like living in a certain kind of hell. So it's fun for them to jump in and get in different fights. So that's what happened there. When the guy refused to move, they told him that they were going to call security if he doesn't move. And then seven of his friends were like, call security. We'll F them up. So security came in there. There was a massive fight between the psych ward security and those people that I'm talking about. A couple of them kind of held their own. Like a couple of the security guards got a couple fists to the face, a couple of kicks in, but for the most part, they handled those people pretty handily. And then some of them got taken off of that ward and put onto another ward, which was actually considered they have like a dangerous male ward where they put males that are dangerous and they have them in isolation, which reminded me of on the show, what do they call it? Lockdown. But on the show, it's like lockdown, but that's not what it was for us. They would literally just put them on that other floor and they would be permanently locked down. I guess it would be something like what you might consider solitary confinement in a prison system. Yeah, I actually looked that up, and yeah, when I saw it, it said something like, I want to say that it said 3,000 an episode. I don't know if it's gone up, but I saw something like 3,000 per episode. That's what I looked up. Because I was wondering, how much money these people got paid to actually willingly go into this dangerous situation where anything can happen to them. And 60 days is a long time. A long time. Because it's not like just an issue of being bored, like on Big Brother, where it's like, I'm just sick of being in here because there's nothing to do type thing. It's like every day I have to fight for my life. I have to worry about my life in this place. "60 days. There's like 3 stop." Oh, and then I was hearing, and then like when they were talking about the person who took a dump in the shower, I'm like, oh. And then rationing out the toilet paper, bruh. Just take away the danger part of it, and just living there would drive me crazy. I think that was also the point that I had too about being in the psych ward. I went in there because of a mental health issue. I was having like a mental health breakdown. Not like a psychotic break, but just with my panic attacks and my depression and my agoraphobia. That's what I was in there for. And being in there with the people that I was in there with was so triggering. It was extremely triggering. Like my first 3 days in that psych ward, I was terrified. I remember laying down on my hard bed, because our beds were just like those beds. We got this hard pillow. The windows were barred. We didn't get any fresh air. And I just stayed in my room the majority of the time because I'm like, you know what? I don't want to interact with these crazy people. That's really what I was feeling like. They can stay out there and I'll stay in here. And then one day, one of the staff was like, "It's breakfast time, you know. You need to get out of the room because you want to see more than these 4 walls." And I'm like, I'll just stay here until it's time for me to go home. And then they told me, "You're not going to go home unless you come out and the staff is able to observe your behavior and how you interact with the other people, and if you're compliant with the medication and all this stuff." And I was like, oh goodness, I'm really locked down in here. And that was not for money. There's people who live these lives every day. And the reason I was saying I relate to AB in a way is because I started this new job in February. And now with this job, I find myself visiting my clients in the psych ward on a weekly basis. And I still remember the first time I walked into that psych ward as a staff member. And I had my staff lanyard around my neck. And I'm just walking through, and I'm seeing people looking at me, and some of the patients are talking to me, and some of the patients are sizing me up, looking me up and down. And that first day in there, I was like, oh, this is giving me the ick. And I don't even like to use that term, but I'm like, this is giving me the ick, and this is bringing me back to a place that I never want to be again. And it really took me a decent amount of time, to like maybe a couple of weeks of going in and out, to just say to myself, Mark, this is just your job. You are not in this space anymore. This is a place that you can come in and leave whenever you want. Nobody is going to hold you here and tell you you can't leave. You're not forced to see the psychiatrist or take meds that you don't want to take. Like, you know, you come in here, you meet with your person, you talk to them, and then that's it. You leave and you go home. Not having smoke breaks. Yeah, well, that's one thing in the psych ward. They actually did let people outside to have smoke breaks, which was not fair. They wouldn't let us out. They wouldn't let people who don't smoke outside, at least the one that I was at. But people who did smoke, they would have designated smoke break times. Like, we'll take you outside for 20 minutes at like 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, something like that. So they would have up to an hour to be outside and smoke their cigarettes. And yeah, that was that. But let's see, where are we at? I don't even think I'm gonna make the 10,000 steps. But yeah, I'm gonna watch more seasons today. I don't know which season I'm gonna watch next. Season 5 was a great season. I was upset at the anticlimactic ending. It's so hot. I wish you can't understand how hot it is just by just by looking, but I'm not sweating just because I do sweat easily, but it's like high 80s and extremely humid. And New York humidity, I tell people, is not like Florida humidity, because I've been in Florida, I've been in California, I've been in Mexico. Like I had easier time with the Mexico heat. Oh, did you, Holly? I had an easier time with the Mexico heat than I did with the New York heat, because our heat is like pollution based. 6 was 22, another walk-in pod boss. I was surprised that David actually became a pod boss, because just looking at him and listening to the way that he talks, you wouldn't think that people would listen to him or respect him, but they did. It's easy to get lost in New York, so I understand. When I first moved here, I got lost all the time. I live close to the airport, which is why there's always tons of traffic. And when I do my vlogs outside, you always see the planes flying over my head, because I'm literally 10 minutes from one of the biggest airports in the United States. Possibly. I wish I knew the answer to that, but I do know that the humidity here is because of the density, the population, because New York, size-wise, is not really that big of a place. But there's so many buildings, there's so many cars. And I think the first time I went to Miami, it was like May, and that wasn't even the hottest part of the year. Even that, I was like, this kind of heat, I can't breathe in this heat. I don't like it. And systems are mimicked outside of the prison system. You see how certain things mimic the prison system. And I'll tell you, I do remember my last point, because I think I'm done after this. I do remember my last point. I was only in this. I never saw anyone that jumped in the psych ward. I'm sure it has happened, but it's a much lesser of a rant. I could talk to people of white, black, whatever. The race part of people who were coming at me the most in the psych ward was my own race. Oh, I remember this one lady that was like, "You talk so proper. You're so proper. Hi, proper." Oh, that lady used to irk me. I still remember my last day, because some of my fellow patients that had been in the hospital many times told me that in order for me to get out, I can't engage in these arguments like I was when I first got there, and I had to show my best behavior, walk away, blah, blah, blah. Participate in the therapy, the group therapy, mesh well with others, and then they will let me go. So I did that. And then I remember on my last day, so this is my last thing that I'm going to say. There was this lady who came in there, and she was there because for whatever reason, her husband called the cops on her. She had a psych history. If anyone knows anything about that, if you already have a previous psych history and somebody calls the cops on you, you're likely going to get involuntary put into the psych ward. So that's what happened to her. So when she got in there, she came in kicking and screaming, almost quite literally. I don't belong here. My stupid, no good husband is the one who belongs here. He's the crazy one. How dare you do this? Let me out. I have rights. Like, I'm gonna call my lawyer, this and that and the other. And they weren't listening to her. So she's just talking to the staff all day, all night. Let me out, let me out, let me out. So by circumstance, one night she ended up outside of my room. She ended up outside of my room. He said, I'm gonna talk all night until y'all let me out. There was a hard. I had no sheet hygiene. The sleep hygiene was terrible. Secondly, I hate people disturbing me out of my sleep. That's a huge thing that I hate. So she was outside of my room. Let me out! You mother effers better let me out of this room, or I'm just gonna talk all day and all night. So she went on for what must have been at least an hour. And I'm laying in that bed awake, eyes wide open, listening to nothing but her complaining. So eventually I snapped. I came outside the room. I saw her sitting down on the floor, and I had some choice words for her. I had some choice words that I said to her. But essentially I was like, I don't care whether you belong here or whether you don't belong here, who put you in here, all these different stories that you're telling, yada yada. But don't yell outside my room. I didn't say it like that. I'm giving the nice version. I told her, don't yell outside my room. I'm trying to sleep. Leave this area. Go into your room. Terrorize them from your room, but don't sit out here because I'm trying to get some sleep and you're pissing me off. Boy, who told me to do that? Because after I did that, now she directs all that anger that she had towards the staff all towards me the rest of the time. She's like, every time she sees me, hate proper, I hate your beard, your ugly beard, you're stupid and you're slow and you're this and you're that. And me and her at first were going back and forth. I have to stop walking. I'm too hot. I'm too hot to keep walking. I'm too hot to keep walking. Yeah. So anyways, I saw someone threaten someone with a knife, get me out of Pittsburgh. Oh wow. Yeah, so anyways, that's when my other people that were in there with me, I almost want to call them inmates, told me that I have to play nice with her. But on my last day, on my very last day, they came to me and they said, Mark, you know, we think that you're ready to go. We think you're ready to go. So I was like, just like Jasmine, if y'all saw season 5 of Locked In, I was just like Jasmine, like, yes, I'm ready to go. Get me out of this place now. So I signed the discharge paperwork. My parents are gonna pick me up after work. And then I was like, let me find this lady and make sure she gets the shot before I leave. So I went over to her. She was like, hey, Proper. How's it going, Proper? So I was just like, shut the blankety blank up. I was like, look at your nappy hair. I was like, you are ugly as blank and blank. And I just said everything that I was holding on to for the whole rest of the time when she was talking to me and I was walking away. So then she starts going off. She mooned me. Yes, she pulled her gown down, bent over and like mooned me, told me to kiss her ass. She started just yelling and screaming obscenities. And I was like, ha. I got her. So one of the staff came over there and was like, what's going on here? I was like, I don't know. They were like, Mark, She didn't just get riled up like that for no reason. I'm like, I don't know. She said hi to me, and I said hi back, and then all of a sudden she just started going off. She just started going off. So then they looked at me and they were like, Mark, that was wrong of you. I didn't feel like it was wrong, and I still don't feel like it was wrong, because going into a place like that and being around people like that and not being able to leave could drive a sane man nuts. And I held myself together for my 13 days. Until that point, I got that one little piece of revenge, which I was happy about. Sorry to that lady, but I mean, she probably just took a 3-hour snooze, and she was good to go, and I was gone by the time she woke up. There was no lesson to learn, Cass. There's no lesson to learn. The lesson that I learned was that psychiatric facilities, like, if there was a study like locked in that was done on psychiatric facilities, my advice to them would be like, you need to separate everybody in these facilities based on what they're in there for. Like, if somebody is in for stabbing somebody, they should be in there with the other people who are in there for similar crimes. If somebody is in there for suicide attempts, they should be in there with people who are in there for suicide attempts. If somebody is in there because they have a, like, schizophrenia with delusions, they should be in there with other people. You shouldn't just and expect one group. Like, if somebody comes in my face and curses at me and me, says all this stuff to me, like, I should act like I'm a staff member, because I'm like, oh, I have a lesser disorder than you, so I need to apologize for having your name in my mouth when I never even said your name and I don't know your name. Like, that's just wild behavior to me. Wild behavior. That's okay. I'm getting off now anyways. I am an hour in, and you don't know how amazingly hard it's been. I am not a heat person. I am not a heat person at all. And I'm mad that I only got 8,000 steps, because I've been walking slower to make sure that I don't pass out. Hey, hold on a minute. Who wants to take James out? Who wants to take James out? I usually do it, but I have mods for a reason. There you go. Thanks, Lisa. I think James probably went to a Diddy party. Oh, I made you a mod on the other one, didn't I? Let me see. Can I do that now? Yes, I can. There you go. Now you are a mod on both channels. Suicide attempts for the whole yeah, but anyways, thanks y'all for joining me on my walk. We have Big Brother is what? Next Wednesday. We're Sunday. Today is the 7th, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or is it the 8th? The 7th. Today's the 7th. So 14, 15, 16, 17. The 17th. The 17th. Big Brother starts. Y'all know how I get down on Big Brother. Although I have warned everybody that last year I actually did 100 days in a row of lives. 100 days of lives in a row of Big Brother. This year I'm not going to do 100 days, but I am going to be a lot more active, because at this point I've just been covering a show here and there. Like I covered a bit of Survivor, I covered the challenge when it was on, but Big Brother, when Big Brother is back on, I'm going to be active. I'm going to be at both nights of the Big Brother premiere party. Aza from Big Brother 23 hosts a premiere party for Big Brother. So all the Big Brother 25 people, or most of them, are going to be in the house. I think that I'm going to meet pretty much everybody from Big Brother 25, because I already met Sari and Izzy and Jared. And they're not going to be at the premiere party, but... And what's his name is not going to be there, of course. The dude who got banned. What's his name? Luke? Luke is not going to be there. But it seems like everybody else from BB25 is going to be there. I'm going to try my best to go live, or even if not live, I'm going to talk to as many of them as I can, but I'm going to have a lot of content. James is not... If one of y'all won't be Diddy bopping, I forgot about that. I forgot about that me thing. One of y'all won't be Diddy bopping. You met Jared. What was he like? Actually, I liked Jared in person. I'm not going to lie. I know Jared was not a popular figure on Big Brother 25, but in person, he was pretty funny and he was really nice. I put those videos up of me talking to him. I was speaking to him and James. I might have to get rid of my next. What's happening? Math ain't mathin'. All right, y'all. Take care. Have a good rest of your evening. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Like I said, as of next week, I'm going to be way more active on this channel. You'll be seeing a lot of me. You'll be seeing me probably at least 3 to 4 days, at least 3 days a week minimum. Because I will try to be on here on every Big Brother live episode day. I will no longer be doing live streams, as my channel is still on a warning status. They don't let you stream the live streams anymore, but I'll definitely be up on here recapping and letting y'all know everything that I know when it comes to what's happening in the house, head of household updates, all that good stuff. All right, y'all. Talk to y'all soon.